Hi, I'm Zoe. Welcome to today's lesson on modern slavery, cotton production in the fashion sector. A few words to begin with. It can be extremely difficult to imagine somebody's life when theirs is so different from the one we ourselves are used to. Today, to try and bridge this gap, we will start by learning a little bit more about the day-to-day life of a cotton field worker. While it is very important to learn and educate ourselves, we must bear in mind that we enjoy a number of privileges that other people might never experience. Try to keep this in mind whilst working through today's lesson, as it is not our place to judge the situation or feelings of other people. Let's start off with a couple of questions to outline the everyday life of a cotton field worker. Imagine standing in a field, the sun is burning, and you've been in there for more than 10 hours without any shelter from the sun. You haven't had a break all day, there has not been enough time to eat or drink water, and your back hurts, and so do your hands. You have not been provided with any protective gear for your labor, which leaves you in constant fear that you might hurt yourself and become unable to work, earn money, and provide for your family. What are your needs? What would you need to be able to stand up for your rights? Do you have any choice? What are your options? And can you take a rest? Estimates vary, but there are about 20 to 45 million people living in modern slavery worldwide today. They work in many different industries, ranging from technology to agriculture to housework or sex labor. Modern slavery is described as the severe exploitation of people for somebody else's commercial gains. One person may possess or control another person, thereby depriving them of his or her personal and free will. Control may be exercised by subjecting another person to threats or violence, to loss of free will, economic exploitation, or social marginalization. People may have had their passports taken away and face deportation, or may have had to go into debt. People are exploited to make our clothes, to serve our food, harvest our crops, work in our factories, or work at home as cooks, cleaners, or nannies. There are various forms of slave labor today. Let's clarify some terms before we move ahead. Human trafficking describes the use of threats, violence, or coercion in order to transport, recruit, or harbor people to exploit them for forced labor, prostitution, criminality, marriage, or organ removal. Forced labor is any work or service people are forced to do against their will under threat of punishment. Debt bondage or bonded labor describes when people are in debt, having borrowed money, and are now forced to work to pay off their debt. This makes them lose control over both their employment conditions and the debt. This is the most widespread form of slavery. The most traditional form of slavery is descent-based slavery. This is when people are treated as property and their slave status has been passed down the maternal line. Slavery of children is when children are exploited for somebody else's gain. This can include, for example, child trafficking, child soldiers, child marriage, or child domestic slavery. Forced and early marriage describes when somebody is married against their will and cannot leave. Most child marriages can be considered slavery. But how did this all start? Slavery has existed for a very long time. Although it is difficult to pinpoint the exact beginning, historians have been able to trace it back to roughly 11,000 years. The reason why it is so difficult to pinpoint the beginnings of slavery is because its origins predate historical recording and the written word. Due to the sociological creation of groups, we know that slavery was not a part of hunter-gatherer societies. The first identifiable evidence has been found in the Code of Hammurabi of Mesopotamia. In this ancient text, slavery is referred to as a common practice throughout the region, which, at the time of writing, had been in practice for thousands of years. Since then, slavery has continued to develop. Sadly, despite the hard work of abolitionists the world over, slavery didn't end in the 19th century. Modern or contemporary slavery continues to exist across the globe, and often in places you wouldn't expect. Experts estimate that about 40.3 million enslaved people are currently in debt bondage. At the end of the day, we are all part of one planet, all humans of one global society. What can be our input and our contribution to bring awareness to this topic? What are possible solutions to change our own behavior and perhaps even that of others? And what activistic ideas can you come up with that might raise awareness on this issue? Even if making a significant change to a system, society, or policy seems too big, there are always many small steps and individual changes one can make to help achieve a bigger goal. For example, you may start asking yourself, how are things produced and who produced them? To find out more ideas on how to act or raise awareness on this issue, check out Fashion Revolution's website at fashionrevolution.org or join Amnesty International on amnesty.org/getinvolved. Amnesty International is a global movement of more than 10 million people who take injustice personally. They campaign for a better world where human rights can be enjoyed by all. Start asking, start acting. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this lesson. If you'd like to learn more about related issues, check out some of our other lessons.